Welcome to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com. And now, Flock Talk. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Flock Talk. My name is Craig Hart, and I am here with my death-defying co-host, Sarah Hannon. How are you today, Sarah?
I'm good. I actually have defied death a couple of times.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking to you now, so I would.
Yeah, see?
I would assume that
I defy death every day.
Your success rate so far is 100%, so congratulations.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it turns out life is only like 90% fatal. Right. Another interesting tidbit, actually, is that the average number of skeletons in the human body is greater than one, because there's always someone pregnant carrying another skeleton in their body. Fun with statistics. Anyway.
I thought you were going to go in a serial killer direction there. Like the number of skeletons in people's yards, basements. See, this is where my mind goes. It's a dark, dark place. Anyway, Sarah was in charge of scheduling today's guest, so I have no idea who it is, but if you want to kick it off
I have
today?
A surprise guest today. Wait. Craig A. Hart is the stay-at-home father of twin boys, an author, narrator, and audio producer. Oh, no. He was also director for Northern Illinois Radio Information Service, a broadcast outreach that brought daily news and information to the visually impaired.
Sounds like a scam.
This guy's shady. A native of Grand Rapids, Michigan, Craig lives in Iowa City, Iowa, with his wife, son's insane dog, and antisocial cat. I think all cats are antisocial, aren't they?
I think it's in the contract, their biological contract.
Anyway, welcome, Craig, to Flock Talk.
Am I happy to be here?
Are you happy to be here?
I don't know. We'll see as the program unfolds.
I have so many questions to ask you, and the first one is one I've asked you before, not on a podcast. How do you do all of those things? Is there a time machine, or do you not sleep?
I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of said time machine. However, no, I don't sleep. And also, I've become really efficient by force. Because I started out as a stay-at-home dad right from the beginning, from infancy, when they were infants, not me. But it feels like I've been doing it since I've been an infant. So if I wanted to continue to do the various things I was trying to do, which was writing and then later audio and all that good stuff, I had to figure out ways to do it. And so I became very efficient in short periods of time. A lot of times when people sit down to accomplish a task, it takes them, 15 to 30 minutes at least to get into the flow of what they're doing, and then they're in a rhythm and they finish it. I discovered that's not going to work for me because many times early on, especially, I only had 15 or 30 minutes. And so I had to make the most of those times. So I learned how to, in a lot of ways, prep my mind or prep what I was doing in my mind leading up to while I was doing other things, making bottles, changing diapers, doing all that good stuff. And then when it got time to actually do the project, I was ready to go and could be optimally efficient.
Now, something our listeners might know is that we have this one thing in common. We were both at-home parents to twin boys.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I found, in my experience with twin boys, is the best way to not accomplish anything is to count on nap time. Like, no, this is nap time. Why aren't you sleeping?
Yeah.
Or they take turns. One of them, sleeps right away, and then you can't get the other one to sleep until you do, and then the other one wakes up.
Oh, yeah. And as soon as you figure out a solution for one thing, they switch on you.
Oh, they just change.
I figured out the perfect solution to getting child A to sleep. And then child B will have a different problem. And then when you go back to child A, he has changed his strategy altogether. They tag team you.
And you learn those little things like if one wakes up hungry, you wake the other one and feed them too.
Oh, it's got to be a schedule. Has to be a schedule. I think that's the number one mistake of new parents that I've talked to is that they fail to set up a schedule. And it's
especially important with twins.
It has to be. Yeah, it has to be. Absolutely.
My first was a singleton, and she was my first. And we didn't have a schedule per se, but she was always a good sleeper. So whatever. She's still a good sleeper. Like, she's 14, so now she sleeps till 11:30.
She's an exceptionally good sleeper.
Yeah, she's like...
Not a good waker.
Yeah.
But
Not a good waker. No, not a good waker. Yeah, I had to wake her this morning and be like, listen, if you want to do this, this, and this, you got to get out of bed. So I'm gonna ask you questions about each of your little, roles. That sounded very patronizing. I'm going to ask you questions about each of your roles in life.
You still
We've
doing that little audio thing you're doing? It's like a grandparent.
That's so cute.
Still writing those little books.
It's a good thing you got that woman to bring home the bacon. So you released an ebook earlier this year. I think you just released another one. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And you're doing a serialized version. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Yes, I want to hear about this. What is the serialized version, and how does one hear it?
Well, the serialize, it's my experiment with the Kindle Vella program, which is sort of their take on, what are those other websites? Wattpad, I think, is one. And you're essentially blogging your book. So you release episodes or chapters on whatever schedule you want, and then people read them episodically. Sort of like a TV show, but in book form.
Okay. Do you have the whole thing written before you start releasing them, or is it just a really good way to kick you in the pants?
I don't have it written. So whenever people read it, I go through it to edit it somewhat, but it's pretty raw. It's up there. Now, at the end, when it's all complete, I'll probably publish it in book form. And at that point, I'll go through it and edit a little bit more. But it's pretty fast and loose. So it's almost like a sneak peek into the mind of the writer. Kinda, yeah.
Well.
I don't know
backstage pass.
I don't know if everybody does it that way. Some people may have it completely written out and just publish it periodically. I don't know. But for me, I've chosen to do it this way because it's a lot of fun, slightly scary because I don't really like releasing things in process that much. You kind of I want it to be perfect before it goes out there. So, but you're right. It is also giving me a bit of a kick in the pants too, because you're sort of accountable to the people following the story. Like,
absolutely.
Where's my next episode?
Where's my chapter?
Right. And if you fall down on the job and just don't finish it, it's painfully obvious that you didn't.
Now, you also, one thing we did not mention in your lovely intro there was that you founded Northern Lake Audio, which has now been consumed by the mothership, Pink Flamingo Productions. So not only do you do all of those things, but you're also an audiobook producer. I don't have a question about that. I just wanted to point it out. You also engineer. Did you go to school for engineering? You just kind of learn it and get real good at it fast because you were good at it.
Well, I don't claim to be great at it, but I did learn on my own. So whatever the end result was, it was autodidactic in nature.
Very big words.
I know, right?
They're stud. Do you read your book reviews?
I used to. I don't very much anymore. Early on, when I first publish a new book, I will, because if it's going off a cliff, I kind of want to see maybe if there's a constant thread that explains why. Like half the book is missing. That's something I would want to know.
Whoops.
Right? But beyond that, I just look at the average on Amazon, and I'll look at the distribution of reviews, 4 or 5 stars, whatever. But I usually don't read the actual reviews anymore. And not that I don't appreciate them. I have a whole review team, and I certainly appreciate all the work they do, and it's vital work. But for me, it's the lack of motivation that descends upon me when I read a very bad review does not outweigh the boost I get when reading a good review. And so I've discovered that, again, getting back to this efficiency thing, I don't want to spend half a day recovering from a really nasty review when I could just spend that time writing the next book.
That's smart. I said to my husband the other day, hold on, I've got to check my self-worth on the internet.
Right.
And he says, you shouldn't keep that there.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. You're right. I shouldn't. So let's say, hypothetical situation, you are in your office space and you have multiple things that you have to accomplish and you're feeling unmotivated. Say you have something in every little bucket that you have to do. Which task is it that getting going on it will help you out of the funk? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it varies. Sometimes it's writing. Sometimes I just, you know what? I'm going to go outside with a beer and write a chapter or something. I consider
At 9 a.m.
Whenever. Yeah. I don't believe in this 5 o'clock business. I think that's an arbitrary social construct that I reject. However, so yeah, it does vary depending on what I consider myself fortunate in that I'm motivated by the accomplishment of tasks. Working makes me feel good. I don't really ever tend to actually retire. My idea of retirement is being able to choose when I work, not the cessation of said work. And that's a natural thing that I, again, consider myself somewhat fortunate, I guess, to have. It can be kind of a bad thing because you can think that's the ingredient for a workaholic, maybe.
But you've got those foils at home that are naturally occurring.
Right, exactly, yes. Yeah, once they're out of the house, then we'll see what happens. But yeah, it depends. Some days it's writing, some days it's editing. The good thing about doing so many different things is that you have a lot to choose from. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but it's also hard to get burnt out on one thing because you're constantly going back and forth. And so I do enjoy that as well. They play off each other pretty nicely.
Have any of your characters ever shown up like in your dreams? After writing them, not like, I'm going to write this person, but like you write about a person and they just like invade your life in other places?
They definitely invade my life. I don't think I've ever dreamed about them. Writing, especially if I'm getting toward the end of a book, it definitely ends up taking over my life in a lot of ways. I don't sleep well because I'm thinking about the book. I can't concentrate on other things. I get irritable, so it definitely does impact my life a lot. But no, interestingly, I don't think I've ever dreamed about my characters. I've heard, a lot of people, writers, who that's basically all they do is when they're heavy into a book is they dream about it constantly. Characters talk to them in their dreams and stuff. And that's, for better or worse, that's never happened to me.
Switching tacks and talking about your life as a narrator. What genre do you like narrating the most? And or which genre do you feel fits you the best, if they're different? And no, that's it.
That's a good question. I do love narrating a good thriller. Which one fits me best? I don't know. I don't think I'm qualified to say. That would be whoever would cast me for a book. I have done mostly romances for some reason. I don't really know why. But if you look in Audible, it's very heavily romance, sprinkled in with a couple of Presbyterian book, which is kind of an interesting, like, did you guys look at my Audible page before you hired me for this? Or, but I do, it makes sense that I would like thrillers because that's what I write.
That wraps up our main portion of questions today. Now it is time for what you and I call, Hot Six. Are you ready for the Hot Six?
I guess.
You guess. You know these questions. Right. Buckle up, listeners. It's time for Hot Six. Question 1. What is the most overrated book you've read?
I guess the most overrated book I've ever read is anything by Jane Austen. I don't really get the appeal.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I've offended about at least 50% of the world's population. That will just...
You've not offended
that's
me.
That's just how it will have
It's
to
hard
be.
to offend me. What famous literary work have you never read but feel like you should have?
Tons. So many. I've never read Moby Dick all the way through. I've never read Tale of Two Cities all the way through. And I really feel like...
I've never read either of those.
I feel like I really should finish. I've tried it more than once, and I've never made it all the way through. I've never read any meaningful sections of James Joyce, but I don't really get the appeal of him either, to be honest. So yeah, probably Tale of Two Cities.
Dickens got paid for the word, and you can tell. So maybe that's why you haven't read it.
He could have used a good editor.
If you could be any animal for one day, what would you be?
Probably a dog. We get that answer a lot, but it's just so true.
What is your biggest grammatical pet peeve?
Supposedly or supposably, that's one.
That's amazing.
Yeah, people have to see these words over and over, and yet it doesn't sink in that they're doing it wrong. I don't understand it. Lose, loose is another one. And I get the occasional typo. I can certainly do that. Mm-hmm. Your, and your. That's one. Mm-hmm. Again, I've done the typo before, but you see people who they use it several times in the same paragraph. Clearly, it's not a typo. They're just doing it wrong.
Right.
It just drives me crazy. The lack of attention to detail in anything drives me crazy.
At what age does mispronouncing words become not cute?
2.
My son just turned 9, and he still mispronounces some things that I don't want to correct him because I think they're so cute. And like he doesn't say chocolate. He says, and I'm going to spell it for you, Trocklit. Trocklit. The weapon that they fight with in Star Wars are lightsabers, like they have wings. And I just love it so much because I don't know, it's just so him and stuff. But I guess if he started, writing novels, it would become less cute.
Yeah, I mean, right.
Fan fiction,
exactly.
lightsabers.
For one, well, yeah, I think 9 gets a pass. And my twins are 7, and they certainly like. I will also admit, though, that the age at which that is still appropriate is probably much longer if they're your own children.
Probably true.
So I'll have to take ownership of that.
Looking back over your entire lifetime, what is your most embarrassing favorite song? I have been wanting to ask you this question for months.
I have a ton of them because I am not an emotional person. I am rational to a fault, too much so, I think. Like logic. But I have a decided weakness for sappy songs. A lot of stuff from the 50s. And then later, Michael Bolton. I went through a phase where I loved Michael Bolton. Yeah, just a lot of stuff like that.
I can just picture, I don't know your wife, and I'm sure she's wonderful and I would love to meet her. I am picturing her as I imagine her, like in a car with you, telling you some horrible, tragic story that happened at work or something, and you are a robot. And then like some Air Supply song comes on and you're just like,
Yeah. That's kind of true. I'll have like a caustic remark. Like, again, some horrible tragedy. Like, well, they shouldn't have been doing that. That was stupid. Why? Then what they expect to happen? Of course, they're going to get all their heads chopped off. Bunch of morons. Yeah. And then a sad song. It's not too far from the truth.
Okay. Final question of the Hot 6. If you could be one character from anything you've written, who would you be and what would you do? One day. Sorry, it's one day.
It's going to sound like a sales pitch. Probably the main...
That's why I asked him.
Yeah, probably the main character in one of the newest books, the Mayan Shadows book, Max Barnes. He's a fun character. He's also a very irreverent, and he's like an archaeologist, but he's not tied to any university. So unlike Indiana Jones, he's more of an independent type archaeologist who actually takes a lot of shit from academia. So there are some real similarities between he and I. But yeah, he was a lot of fun to write.
What would you do for that day?
Oh, what would I do? I forgot about that. Probably go find an ancient Mayan crystal that may or may not contain magic powers.
You only have one day.
Well, we covered how efficient I am.
Oh, yes, right.
And since I'm writing the books, I know where it is. So
that's wonderful. It has been a real pleasure talking to you and getting to know you better, Craig Hart. Thank you for joining us on Flock Talk.
You're most welcome.
This has been Flock Talk. I'm Sarah Hannon, and my host and guest, Craig Hart.
Thanks for listening.
Is over there. In a whole other time zone, but we can still talk in real time. It's nifty.
It's the future.
The future is now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
You've been listening to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. This podcast is produced by Pink Flamingo Productions. Editing by Craig Hart. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com.